Welcome back to the channel. I'm going to show you guys how to use Patch Replacer on the color page and how to track it. So that way we can go from this to this. So let's show you how to do it. I'm over on the color page and I typed in Patch Replacer in the effects here. I'm going to drop it into the node by connecting it to the line here. And now we have our on-screen controls. How the Patch Replacer works is you have a source and a destination. There's a little arrow telling you where that's going. So what I'm going to do is place this roughly over the boat, and these are globally controlled. So if you grab a corner, it'll scale both of these at the same time. And then I'm going to scoot this down closer to where the boat was. Now how this Patch Replacer works, there's some options here. You can use a rectangle. You can use an ellipse. You can use an alpha channel if you wanted to use a window. And then there's some blend modes, and there's this checkbox called Keep Original Detail. And as you can see, that shows what's underneath the patch. So this is good for fine-tuning where your patch is going to be placed at. Then we have some blur edging detail and variability and some reflection type. So this all aids, depending on your source, on how to get it to look smooth and blend the edges naturally. And then you can also change the position over here in case you don't want to use the overlay controls. You have some on-screen controls, such as it's on show right now. There's auto hide, where if you click it, it'll go away until you release it. And then there's just hide. So let's show you a couple tips here on getting your patch to look right. So what I'm going to do is zoom in. And what I find is you get pretty close to the size of your patch. You can get in here pretty far. And then another thing I wanted to show you is with our source patch, I'm going to drag it in and watch this area of our destination, how close I can get before it actually starts showing the part of the original. So here it's starting to creep in. So we can get pretty close to the surrounding pixels before it actually shows up in the patch here. Now the reason I'm going over top here is because this shot actually goes off screen here as it travels. And if the destination and source were over here, the source is on the left, it's gonna start sampling from here and off screen. So we need it to be able to go on screen to the edge of the shot. So right about here is where our patch is. And then I'm going to shut this off to hide, or you can hit tilde and shift. And I'm going to start using the details here. So blur edges is how it's going to blur within the patch. So as you can see, if I go all the way up, it doesn't blur it at all. If we come down, there's a little bit of a obvious patch here. So I'll probably split the difference. And you got to watch this over time in the shot. So maybe about here. Then there's variability. If we go down, you could see more of an obvious patch. If we go all the way up, it kind of smears it. And I just like to go somewhere in the middle and look what the blend looks like as I adjust it. So that's a good starting point for all that. We have our patch roughly placed and the blend pretty well. Now you can change the reflect type, and that'll have to like recache your node, but try these, try wraparound, try from source, from patch. So you can do all that just to see what looks good. You're going to get different results depending on your sources. So play with the details here. The positions are pretty self-explanatory. So now we need to track this over the course of the shot. So what I'm going to do is click on Keep Original Detail. So our subject comes back. We're staying on the Patch Replacer node, and I'm going to move to the tracker. Normally, I think you're on custom curves. I'll choose tracker in the middle, and by default, it's on window. It'll say tracker window. Just move over here to the right and choose effects, and we're going to choose clip. I believe it's on clip by default, and then that will know that it's ready to track the effects on this node. I shut off rotate and 3D perspective. And now to add a tracker, you have to come down here below the tracker. There's a little arrow with a plus sign. And then if you wanted to change tracker type, if you have studio, this is where you get to IntelliTrack. But we're going to choose point tracker since that's what the free version. So I'm going to click the add button. And now we get a little blue crosshair in the middle of our preview. I'm going to hover over it and drag it down to our subject. Depending on the contrast of your scene, if it's dark and light right around it, it gets a better track. You could actually go on your first node here. I have a little bit of an adjustment here, but if you wanted to alter it to give it a track and then shut that off, sometimes that helps the tracker out. We're going to leave it like that, and I'll go back to the Patch Replacer, and then we're going to choose the two arrows here just under the track title, which is track forward and reverse, and we'll hit go. So now it completed the track. I'll move my playhead towards the end of the track. It's going to start moving, and this thing actually goes off screen. It looks like it stays relatively close. Now you can adjust this frame by frame. So if it starts going off course, you can switch over to frame right here and then start adjusting it right here and then walk through the rest of the shot with your cursor key. For now, I'm just going to see how it did with the tracking and what it looks like before I decide to do that. So back on the patch replacer inspector tools, I'm going to shut off keep original detail. That's going to initiate our patch again. And then our on-screen controls here are still on. So shift tilde will get rid of our little crosshair. I'm going to hit home, Z to zoom out, P to present, and hit play. And I'm just going to watch that patch area and see if I want to adjust it, see if something slips. It looks like it's doing okay. Not too bad. From the start here, I don't really love how soft it is. I could see a little bit of it doesn't look as good as I'd like at the start here. So especially keep an eye right here. I'll toggle this node on and off, which since we're on that node, it's Command D. I can see a little bit of weird softness. So let's go back to our on-screen effects. We will go show, and maybe we'll just move the width a little bit wider. Let's see how that does. And that's still a pretty pronounced looking spot there. Let's shut these off, and I will adjust the variability a little more, maybe something like that. And then of course we're going to have to look through the shot and see what it looks like. So it's still a little funky. To adjust that, I'm going to change our border type. I'm going to try replicate, maybe reflect from source. Let's see how that does. As you can see, our node turns red. It has to analyze it and cache it. So we'll let it turn blue. And there's blue now. Node caching, if you right click your node, there's a little node cache. It's on auto right now. You can have on or off. So once it's blue, that means it's looked through and it's done analyzing. So it's still not looking that good to me. I'm going to turn this back on, and I'm going to just change the sizing a bit. Get it a little bit closer. Maybe a little smaller of a patch will work. That looks a little better to me. All right, so if we were to start this shot, it could be blended a little bit better, but it's pretty convincing. I don't think if you didn't know what was there, you probably wouldn't think twice about it. You could probably blur a little bit better. All right, so that's how you can use the patch replacer and track it with the tracker on the color page. If you want me to show you how to do it with the power window, leave a comment down below and I will make a video on that. So thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you guys on the next video.